Leadership in Army is not a title. It's the accountability under pressure, under fire. We know that hesitation can cost a life. A delayed decision can cause permanent damage. And of course, I must tell you that there is zero tolerance for excuses. It's not possible to save every life, but it is about knowing and understanding and delivering that every patient deserves an effort. They deserve dignity and they deserve respect.
In today's episode, we are honored to have with us Captain Sandhya Shankar, Group Chief of Nursing at Fortis Healthcare Limited.
I would say, what did the pandemic reveal? It revealed our strength. Yeah. And that it was also seen that nurses' strength was unquestionable in the healthcare. They demonstrated adaptability, courage, and most importantly, clinical judgment, which saved lives. I still remember my nurse and we facilitating a video call from the cremation ground where her own father was getting buried in Kerala, and she in PPEs, in ICU, standing in tears. Not only that, the entire department was in tears.
I think, ma'am, that is the sacrifice which healthcare people pay. Something which is the call of duty, and the other thing is the call of your family. You have to choose between it.
Healthcare doesn't collapse when the beds are full. You know, hospitals don't crash when the occupancy is full. It collapses when your nurses are exhausted. And that's what it is.
I guess that's why we call nurses as the backbone of our healthcare system.
Yeah. Digitization is the solution, because we can't sit and keep crying about deficiencies in healthcare.
Yes.
Shortcomings and shortage of nurses or doctors in healthcare. No, we have adequate. It's a matter of deployment, allocation and utilization, and making them more efficient. That's our job as leaders. This is my message to all the young nurses. Leadership is also at the bedside when you own the patient and lead the clinical rounds and doctor waits for you only because it's you who can give the most reliable update on the blood values, patient condition and medicine efficacy. And that's what a bedside needs, always excellent nurses. And we dream of that. But the system urgently needs the nurses who can redesign care, who can actually own the care, and who can own patient outcomes.
Hello and welcome to the Compassionate Voices, the nursing leadership series, brought to you by Voice of Healthcare in collaboration with Polymedicure. This series honors India's nursing leaders, the backbone of our healthcare system, whose compassion, courage, and leadership has quietly shaped patient outcomes, healthcare quality, and the future of nurses in India. In today's episode, we are honored to have with us Captain Sandhya Shankar, Group Chief of Nursing at Fortis Healthcare Limited, a postgraduate public health nurse with a distinguished military background. Captain Sandhya's leadership journey has been shaped by the service in high-pressure environments where discipline, responsibility, and resilience were paramount. Commended for her service at 92 Base Hospital, Srinagar during the Kargil War. She is a recipient of Chief of Army Staff Commendation, a recognition for leadership under extraordinary circumstances. Beyond military service, she plays a pivotal role in advancing nursing quality and standards as a principal assessor with NAB, including digital health standards and nursing excellence under QCI. Also, during the COVID-19 pandemic, her leadership further elevated nurses as a resilient and essential force within the healthcare system. She's selected for Leadership for Change by the International Council of Nurses. Captain Sandhya continues to contribute to national nursing initiatives with deep commitment to collaboration, quality, and patient-centered care. Welcome to our show, ma'am. It's an honor to have you.
Thank you. That sounds heavy, Simran.
Ma'am, I don't think that would be very heavy. As we go down to your journey, you started from army and in the environment where decisions had to be made under pressure, uncertainty, and responsibility. You know, that is far beyond where any classroom can teach, right? So looking back, how did your journey in the armed forces shape your mindset, leadership values, and the way you lead nurses today?
Thanks for asking me this and beginning your talk from this question. But leadership in army is not a title. It's the accountability under pressure, under fire, under those circumstances where we know that hesitation can cost a life. A delayed decision can actually cause permanent damage.
Yes.
And of course, I must tell you that there is zero tolerance for excuses. So there's no passage where you can get away. You better get ready. And it trains to get us ready early in the life, very early in the life, not from the, times when we put on stars.
Yeah.
But from the cadet life itself, day in and day out, where it is about the willpower, where it's about making a quick decision to put on your PT dress and as a cadet, show up on the games playground at 6 in the morning, or rather make an excuse and report sick and go and sleep in the sick room. So there were choices to make, and there were no scope for excuses. So we learn it quite early. And the environment has wired, if I have to just quickly list, it has wired three things into me. And first one is mission before self. The uniform is not about egos. It's irrelevant. The hierarchy in the stars is not about leading. It gives a message. It actually helps you role model. And it's with some clarity. And what it teaches is teams always come first and team safety comes first. And that's motivate you towards not only your team, but also for your patients. And the second one is stability.
Yeah.
They say, keeping calm in chaos. And when you say keeping calm in chaos is something, when the team sees you stable, they actually are stable. They know how to function. And it also helps you walking the talk. That's what is in the corporate language, what we say. I learned it quite late, but realized it that we were doing it way before. And that's how I lead, nursing teams even today, by being visible and by actually making things achievable and disable for my team. And third one, which I have to say, is people before process, but nothing without process. When it is about systems and when it is about people and their health, life and death, one thing, and about the large workforce, only one thing will keep us focused, cohesive, as well as, directed towards a goal is process. But people come before process, and I said that nothing without process.
Yes.
So aligning everything is the leaders, the managers, and everybody's down below's job. And this is what we do. And it helps you keep visible. It helps everybody converged towards a common goal. And probably that's what is the need of the healthcare.
Definitely, ma'am. And I think that's what, like you said, that's what keep it going. And that's what keep the team together also.
True.
Yeah. Ma'am, if we go back or deeper into your journey, you played a very important role during the Kargil War. So your role at 92 Base Hospital Srinagar during the Kargil War is a very memorable, or I would say defining chapter in your journey. So in moments where decision had life and death consequences, so what did nurses leadership truly mean? And what lesson from that time still guide you today?
Thanks for using that word, defining chapter. Yes, indeed. My tenure at 92 Base Hospital had been defining chapter, not tenure. It is the role at the casualty bay, heading ICU, as well as the entire trauma management section. And, that has actually been one of the most significant chapters and turning point. Me as an individual, as a professional, and as well as an officer in the services. But the moments where decision has taken, actually, it was about life. It was about life and death consequences. This was something where not bothered about the stars or the hours which were gone behind. It was about taking charge. I still remember the senior receiving her orders of posting, getting transferred out, and suddenly just 6 months old in the station and being called by the senior most officer on to take charge. And that moment I didn't know what to do, but I had to step in. And there was no looking back. There was no time to think. It was just, the moments to act. And that's what. And very soon, it was not about Kargil. It was the Operation Parakram, which was already ongoing. So for us, the war was already on.
Yes.
It's just Kargil came as an opportunity or as an occasion which stripped leadership down into the bare essentials. That's what I say. And at 92 Base Hospital, it was not about authority. It was about visibility. It is about recognizing. And it was all about being present. Right? Being present at all times, non-stop, actually aligning, be the ward masters, they are the coordinators, we call them floor managers today, the nursing assistants, they are the younger nurses, ancillary staffs, as well as the medical officer. And so much so why I said that it brings in the real you. It was more than 8 days. We worked without a medical officer because the one who was there had suddenly a medical emergency, move out, and the single officer, senior officer in operation theater, the anesthetist stepped in, but because of the casualty load and all, most of the time busy in operation theater, we were left all by our own to manage the trauma bay, triaging section, as well as the ICU, the critical care, and where there was a wave of soldiers, the wounded soldiers, not only the soldiers, but also the POWs, and of course, the families. So, it was all about, you can't save every life. I want to tell you, that was a time I realized, and I live it to even today. It is not about you. It's not possible to save every life, but it is about knowing and understanding and delivering that every patient deserves an effort. They deserve dignity and they deserve respect. And this is something when stood early, and it helped us, I would say, to practice humanity under pressure. And now that is something, amid that blood, wounds, urgencies, exhaustion, it all depended upon, it was all about preserving the dignity, taking care of your team, having the precise, concrete, and with no mistakes, the correct information. Because that was the time, you realize the responsibility we share and we hold, not only reporting, putting it in black and white on the documents, but also verbally reporting, not only to your commanding officer and the matron, but to the officers and the worried people who used to call from the posts, knowing about their soldiers, and so on and so forth. The story is endless.
Like you said, I think those are the memories which will live in yourselves, and I think till the end, and you will never be able to forget all those things.
It brings that adrenaline rush in you.
I could feel that. I could feel that. and we could also realize the way you were telling us all those things is the kind of pressure, the kind of responsibility, the kind of courage. It was all required, and you all showed, you stood up, the way you all worked together, and how it brought change into many lives. Like you said, you cannot save all lives, but you could save many lives.
Yeah. That's true. That's true.
Ma'am, just like the Kargil war, there's another chapter. I think our generation have seen that. That is the COVID-19. So during the COVID-19 pandemic, nurses emerged as the backbone of our healthcare system. They brought that resilience. So as a leader, how did you support, protect, and empower nurses during this period, which was a very big testing time? So what did that pandemic reveal about the strength and the gaps in our nursing systems?
In between, there was one more. Our generation is, I don't know whether to call it blessed or, blessed with opportunities or something else, because that was the Bhuj earthquake, the most disastrous and, I would say anxiety-causing moment which India has witnessed. And that too immediately after the Kargil war, because had been part of that as well. So while the entire, I would say the healthcare was panicking, during COVID, I still remember my husband teasing me that, why don't you settle? First, you actually, the Parakram was on, then the Kargil, and then this earthquake, then the Bhuj, and now this COVID. And both of us were laughing to it. But yes, now coming on to COVID, it's quite recent, and it's something like it appears. It's so fresh that it appears it was yesterday. But talking about the leadership in nursing or leadership problems in nursing, it's just got exposed during COVID. I would say, I may not sound too pleasant, but the thing is, we actually came to realize on where do we stand. Hum kitne pani mein hai, right? And it was the first priority, which was brutally clear, to protect the nurses, not while saving patient is our core function. Protect the nurses, else the system would collapse or crash, right? Nobody else was available. I would say they were in minimal quantities, numbers. And applauding did not help, actually, for saving life. There was a need for PPs, for training, for awareness, for connect. And most importantly, the most neglected aspect, the morals as well as the mental health. Now, when putting everything together, I'll quickly just list them in three. First one was this actually the protection of people, where we're standardizing PPs, fighting for the procurements, analyzing proactively, and that made us design innovative tools to be proactive and predictive, both bed managements and creating new processes quickly without testing and piloting, just putting them in place and learning by mistakes and errors, right? By maturing them. And it was not about operational excellence. It was about operational survival.
Yeah.
Right. And the second one, I say, the support and visibility and truth.
Yeah.
That is something. When you talk of night calls, everything, but one thing while designing the processes and testing them, only one thing was there in mind. Will it work at 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. in the night at the nursing station or not? Otherwise, go back to the drawing board. Yes, thanks to the traits which Army has actually built in, could assert and had been fortunate to be in the strategy level discussions and decisions. And that really was helpful in the organization, because we could go back to the drawing board every time we felt that it would not work at the front end at midnight. No, and third one, more important, was empowerment at the bedside.
Yeah.
That was something, again, because in those isolated units, nobody except the patient and the nurse would be there. And in that, no, I won't say a body of a human in a PPE, right? It was something very important to fast track their upskilling, their decision making, and also empowering them to tell them that these protocols are led by the nurses, by you, right? And, generating that confidence in him, and trusted them by speaking the right words, and trusted them on making the real-time clinical decisions or informing the doctor in time to have those complex decisions and enacted and carried out in time. And during COVID, of course, removing the hierarchies, because that would have caused delays and redundancies, but rather focusing on competency and high level of communication and empowerment among the nurses, because that was the only time when everybody realized that nurses did not execute, they shaped their plans on ground. And third one, I would say, what did the pandemic reveal? It revealed our strength. And that it was also seen that nurses' strength was unquestionable in the healthcare. They demonstrated adaptability, courage, and most importantly, clinical judgment, which saved lives. And that's the reason, I would say, cumulatively, nationally, if we see, India was able to boast from the clinical front that, yes, we did exceptionally well. We actually did exceptionally well, and every healthcare professional was super proud. Nurses, I would say, they led ICUs. They also trained the staff, ancillary staffs, and even the junior doctors partnering with them. They not only did this, they managed the families. They became counselors, and that's how they held the systems together. And often, I would say, at a lot of personal cost. I still remember my nurse and we facilitating a video call from the cremation ground where her own father was getting buried in Kerala, and she in PPs, in ICU, standing in tears. Not only that, the entire department was in tears.
I think, ma'am, that is the sacrifice which healthcare people, pay that thing, because there's something which is the call of duty, and the other thing is the call of your family. You have to choose between it.
And that's what the word which got most used widely in the country, globally. One word which came up and its power was realized: resilience.
Yes.
Yeah. Be it resilient nurses, resilient doctors, resilient processes, resilient systems, resilient hospitals, resilient healthcare, right? But this was the most abused word, but it was realized that time that resilience is not an individual trait. It is actually a system behavior, right? And that was its power, its strengths, its weaknesses, its shortcomings, and its opportunities were realized. I would say post-COVID, and I'm just adding on to it, that post-COVID, my leadership focus actually quickly shifted onto not sitting only with the celebrating the sacrifices, but most important, it quickly shifted towards sustaining what we have achieved. Right? And through the webinars, probably I've done nearly 72 location visits after after the wave 3 was setting down, and of course spoke various colleges, students, and various other hospitals and conferences. The total number was nearly it's 96, I think so, if I'm to be precise, because I write my own journal as well, and that's one habit I picked up quite early. And but the focus actually shifted on building the sustainable
Yeah.
ecosystem where nurses should elevate themselves and sustain this hard-earned visibility and positioning in the ecosystem in healthcare. It was now nurses' responsibility to sustain it through knowledge, sustaining their empowerment, their assertiveness, their participation in the clinical decision making, and of course, owning their work and their patients. Because that is one zone where nobody else can encroach.
Yeah.
And they should realize its value and its power. And that's why, because if there is one truth COVID made undeniable, is healthcare doesn't collapse when the beds are full. Hospitals don't crash when the occupancy is full. It collapses when your nurses are exhausted, right? And that's what it is.
And I guess that's why we call nurses as the backbone of our healthcare system.
Yeah.
They were standing tall, they were standing together with doctors, with patients, and that's why we could beat the COVID-19 three waves, I believe.
You're right.
In any amount, we say that we do respect and acknowledge and full of gratitude to the service by the nurses and the entire healthcare system. It is all less.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Yeah.
Ma'am, there's another feather in your hat, that is as principal assessor with NABH, including digital health standards and nursing excellence. So you work at the intersection of quality and care delivery. So how can accreditation frameworks genuinely uplift nurses' practice instead of being seen as compliance-driven processes?
Oh, that's a real heavy gyan question. Thanks, but very important from the eyes of an operations leader and operations head who manages processes and systems in healthcare.
That's why we wanted it from you.
Yeah, I don't deny that it was Greek and Latin 15 years back to me when I came, and I used to look up at the assessors in awe, totally in awe. Oh my God, what is the reputation and status they hold? And they always attracted me. But down the lanes, emerging from a doer, from a instruction follower to a manager, and then to a senior supervisor, and then being an operations head, probably I've walked that journey in quality to realize that accreditations become a burden only when it is treated like a paperwork, when it is treated like an event. And it's a real burden and it fails you. It is actually a blessing when it is done right as a clinical operating system.
Yeah.
I actually feel like repeating it, that accreditation becomes a burden when it is actually treated like a documentation, paperwork, or an event. And it's a blessing when done right, because it is a clinical management system. And as a principal assessor with NABH, and of course a faculty, and across core standards for the hospitals, be it digital health, be it nursing excellence standards, I've learned one thing very clearly, that accreditation uplifts nursing only when nurses are the subjects of, not the subjects of audit. They are not the followers of a checklist, but they start becoming the architects of standards, the architects of the processes, architects of ownership of the patients. And now this is something, again, I would say, don't, you may smile at me that ma'am has got everything 3 in every question. But again, this actually I've witnessed this possibility in 3 shifts, I would say. And the first one is, say, translate standards into bedside value. And when you say translate standards into bedside value, if the healthcare worker, the junior doctors, nurses, if they see how a requirement, now complying to a standard is a requirement, and how a requirement of a standard, it improves patient safety, it improves the patient outcome, it reduces or it dignifies my work, right? And if the system is able to make the young doctor or a nurse at the patient end, if it is able to make them understand, believe me, there is nothing which will help or which will facilitate a sustained workflow or a sustained operational excellence. Otherwise, there is only one word for it, a failed system.
Yeah.
Right? And that's the reason quality must answer one question in the hospital for these youngsters, for these frontliners, be it the young doctors, nurses, technicians, that how does this make my shift better, or my patient better, or my work better. And second one, when I say second shift, second is making nurses the quality architects, not the checklist followers. I said this earlier, but second, it's most important that they become the quality architects in the hospital, not the checklist follower that, okay, this is for NABH and please, we need to do, this. And now nurses span the entire care continuum, when they are brought in after decisions. Now, this is what has happened when the conflict with the nursing head becomes an emotional outburst after repeat instances. You remember the frontliners, or maybe the young doctors, or the key specialists and the nurses. You remember them when the SOPs are designed, when the processes are finalized, when the digital solution is purchased, and all these are put in your corridors just to be used.
Yeah.
Now there comes the challenge. There comes the challenge when the executionists, the users, the beneficiaries really don't know how to use, or they are not happy because their challenges are not met, but the work has duplicated or multiplied.
Yeah.
And the third one, when I talk, is using accreditation to build the capacity and capability of the healthcare workers, both the doctors and the nurses in the hospital, not to treat as an event.
Yes.
Not to treat as an exercise, right? Not to treat as an episode or an opportunity to get a tag.
Yeah.
That is the time, and it is not, when we do get the list of NCs, it is not a failed doctor or a failed nurse or a failed department. I must say it is the failure of the leadership who has failed to align the system to what is right for their patients. And this is what I want to draw. I want to use this platform today to draw the focus of the leaderships in the hospital, those who react or those who actually remain neutral also on the observations received. Rather use that as an opportunity to align the system, the shortcomings, the weaknesses, and the opportunities for improvement of the system to those observations, so that it becomes a sustained habit. And there the cultural shift in the healthcare systems take place. And I've seen it happening in a lot of hospitals in the country, and they're really doing very well.
Yeah.
Attrition is very low. Happiness quotient is high. The patient outcomes are great. And of course, it's an happy system, and so is the business.
Yeah.
And moreover, you come on the most important, another aspect in today's times is the digital health.
Yes.
It is actually amplifies the patient outcomes. It is great, and it is not a matter of luxury. It is a need of the hour. As on today, when we talk, we want to handle more patients. We want to treat more people, and the flow of the patient. I mean, we don't want any of the patients in OPD and IPDs going unattended. Digitization is the solution, because we can't sit and keep crying about deficiencies in healthcare,
Yes.
shortcomings and shortage of nurses or doctors in healthcare. No. We have adequate. It's a matter of deployment, allocation, and utilization, and making them more efficient. That's our job as leaders, right? So when digitization comes in, nurses are trained, they are trusted, and they are included in those selections, decisions. Probably those are the organizations who are able to have a better patient centricity, a culture, a cohesive and a converged culture towards their goals. And of course, so will be the patient outcomes.
Definitely, ma'am. And I think leaders who keep all those pointers in mind, and I believe what you said in starting also, that we should not take it as a checklist. Nurses are the architect of it. And the moment we'll take it as an event or a document work, it will be a burden.
True.
Rather than our duty that we have to make this change. This has to be done by us only. I think those are the vision which needs to be kept in mind, and the change will be there. Yeah,
I'm sure.
Ma'am, since we're talking about the policy, cultural shift, and how we can, evolve or make better system out there. So the next point is building the next generation nurse leaders. So you have been part of the national and international leaders initiatives, including Leadership for Change by the International Council of Nurses. So what kind of leadership does Indian nurses need now? And how can young nurses prepare themselves to live beyond the bedside?
Interesting one. I think this is the right time, because Indian nursing does not need any more managers.
Yeah.
They're adequate, right? It needs system leaders. When I say system leaders, they need to be in those from I would say the mid-level. So they need to be part of that process design. They need to be part of those strategic and operational decisions, not as a consultant and not as a person to give inputs. Decision, when I'm talking, there's a difference. Sitting in the meeting, not allowing to speak, is also, it's not an inclusion. We can't call it inclusion, right? Being a part of the decision making is something, and that's what is probably, will help the nurses to become good system leaders. Gone are the days when they were actually the frontliners managing shows at the bedside, because 60 to 65% healthcare when being driven by the private sector.
Yeah.
And the need is being actually felt. Probably this is one area which can be leveraged to give an opportunity to nurses to evolve, to strengthen, and to support the businesses, to hospitals, hospital operations, and the leadership. Now, while I'm coming on my experience of national and international leadership initiatives, being a part and very closely working with the initiatives of Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, as well as the Indian Nursing Council, there are three things, again, I would say, which is it's actually impacted, and my vision on all the three, that is the strategy for nurses, influence on nurses, and of course, degree of accountability demonstrated by nurses. Now, all the three, when I say these three, and these all three are non-negotiable, right? And when we say strategy, in that first, it comes as the clinical credibility with system thinking. Now, clinical credibility. Great leaders don't abandon bedside. And I see great doctors, they do conduct the bedside rounds, treat patients while conduct and host lectures in the medical for the medical students and teach them, right? The same has to be mimicked, not mimicked, but lived in nursing as well, where the nurse academicians had to be in equal participants in the hospital services, patient services, because it's easy to talk. It's very difficult to walk the talk.
Yeah.
Right? So walking the talk is, and they are qualified, great academicians. Similarly, the service leaders are to be partnering in the academics. That's the reducing the service and academics gap in nursing. It is huge. Unless this happens, the clinical credibility won't get uplifted, elevated, and enhanced in nursing. So this is something, and it is already sensed. And the bridging initiatives have already started this. And when I talk of system thinking, is again, it is translating the bedside realities into policy, quality, and operational decisions.
Yeah.
And young nurses must understand first and foremost patient outcomes with the right terminologies, data, capturing the authentic data, and how to look at the data for their own patients. I'll give one example on just if a nurse is taught to maintain her own repository of the number of patients she has nursed in her life in a year. He or she will be over at the end of the year of the number of patients, male, female, children with various diseases they have nursed. It will actually give a thought to them on where do I stand today? How many of my patients walked smiling and blessing me? How many went with a sullen face? Or how many were disturbed only to come back after some time, right? A nurse should start thinking that. And this is what is, my vision for the staff nurses, for the younger nurses. Second, coming on to the confidence on influencing. When I say confidence to influence beyond nursing, I can't be myopic only on my patient, my nursing team as an in charge, or my nursing department in a hospital, and I don't know anything beyond it on who's the vice president of India. Yes. Or who's the chief minister of my state, or what is the policy Indian Nursing Council has released or for the registration of nurses, or for the schools or institutes of nursing, or what is the scope of impacting the nursing practice by the upcoming National Nursing and Midwifery Bill. Because as a nurse and as a youngster, I am certainly aware about the trending songs.
Correct.
Trending movies. They're very interesting. Even I do that, right? But awareness is something. That's the reason moving beyond nursing to be aware, to bring those knowledge and awareness within nursing to actually enhance. And that's the reason to be capable of cracking a conversation on the table with the leaders, with the managers, with the influence, with the strategists, not only in healthcare, across industries. This is what is nurse managers should start investing in themselves. And thirdly, when I talk about the courage, it's about the ethical courage, right? Ethical courage to be able to speak up at the right time for your own people, for your patient, for your process, for your organization, for your data, and to be confident about it.
Yes.
Doesn't matter. Sometimes it is not understood. Sometimes there are setbacks. A lot of times you're questioned. But believe me, at the end of it, everybody's intent, maybe the road to the goal is different, it's varying, and sometimes you're forced to walk a different road. But it ends at one end, and that is the great clinical outcomes, patient outcomes, talking about the patient ownership. But more important, and it's uncomfortable a lot of times, maintain neutrality. But how can we, prepare our young nurses for that? Encouraging them to stop waiting for permission. Wait for the opportunity, keep looking for the opportunity, seek exposure beyond your unit, beyond your patient. Be a part of the hospital quality projects. Be an active, aware, knowledgeable nurse in the accreditation works in your hospital. Be a part and volunteer for the digital initiatives, data collection. Understand when someone is asking you to fill a format in an Excel and fill the numbers. Understand why or question why it is being asked for. What is the utilization and future of this data, and who is going to use it? Am I going to be a beneficiary of it or not? And please do not hesitate in asking hard questions, right? And find a mentor. Find a mentor. Don't leave the people who are difficult to work.
Yes.
Right? They make you smarter, more knowledgeable, more aware. One difficult instance and leaving and absconding is not the solution. Don't quit. This is my message to all the young nurses. Don't quit. Seek the opportunity. Because most importantly, shift your mindset. There is a very famous tagline going on clinical bedside to boardroom and falana dhamaka. But more important is, friends, taking leadership is also at the bedside when you own the patient and lead the clinical rounds and doctor waits for you only because it's you who can give the most reliable update on the blood values, patient condition, and the physical state. Of course, and medicine efficacy, right? Of course, this leadership is a responsibility and you can demonstrate your leadership from the very beginning when you step in on the day one, when you start owning your patients. And that's what a bedside needs always excellent nurses.
Yes.
We vision and we dream of that. But the system urgently needs the nurses who can redesign care, who can actually own the care, and who can own patient outcomes. And that's what we called. I have trained on these, and that's the reason it impacted me deep on my project on being the part of the project on leadership for change, initiated by International Council of Nurses, and India has been privileged and I would say honored to be a part of it. And there are 2 cohorts who are being trained, and I'm very proud to say that it is an amazing batch of both public and private sector nurse leaders. And for a change, private sector nurse leaders and managers also had a significant, positioning and value and participation in the cohorts. And of course, it's going very, very well.
That's really great to hear, ma'am. And just taking out all those pointers which you mentioned is, I just realized while you were explaining all those things that nurses are the one who knows the actual ground reality of what is happening in the hospital, the patient bedside, the family, what is going on, what will be the update, how things can improve. And I think that's why doctors rely more on nurses.
True.
And with that accountability and reliability on nurse, few pointers you mentioned, I think the nurses needs overall leadership, the vision that one day she's going to lead this, one day she will be the person who's going to head this. I think that vision will make her realize how things needs to be done.
I'm sure.
Yeah,
I'm sure.
Ma'am, with that, we move on to our next segment, which is the rapid fire round.
You're making me nervous. We're talking since.
Ma'am, with this round, I would need some fiery, although you've been fiery since the start of this conversation, so I don't need to mention it, some rapid answers. Starting with one leadership trait that Army ingrained in you permanently.
Ownership.
Yeah.
Ownership own your team, own your patient, own your outcomes, be responsible, because if it is your call, it's your consequence. This has helped me rock not only in the professional space, but in the personal life as well.
Okay. A moment in your career that tested you the most emotionally.
It brought tears to my eyes. Triaging, when I have to triage, it's all about triaging in the trauma zone. Prioritize, when I have to triage and prioritize between the first casualties, very beginning, before the Kargil war, PRO Srinagar, a JCO, a soldier, all three wounded in a shooting attack by the militants, came to me, and I was the only one with one young nursing assistant on duty in the trauma bay, all lying in front of me, and I had to prioritize. Senior officer's brain coming out. He was shot in the head, the JSO, and the soldier was least wounded but required urgent attention. It was damn difficult because the officer was the husband of one of my seniors who had a teenage daughter. And I was in their house in the mess, officer's mess night the previous evening, and lying now on the floor on the stretcher in front of me. And it was again the moment to prioritize and triage. I'm not able to, while I was talking, I was looking at the floor. I realized actually just seeing them, I'm not able to forget. And that actually tore me apart on how tough a decision making can be at a young girl putting on a lieutenant star, standing there to decide on whom to choose first.
Whom to treat.
Whom to choose first. There was heavy emotion, heavy emotional connect, lying there at the background. But it was duty of the uniform, of the role, responsibility on whom to choose first. That tore me apart. That was one day after everything settled in the night. We never went back to the officer's mess. Me, my nursing assistant, I was crying in the stores, standing there, and he came to console me in his chair. He was also crying. It was a very difficult moment, and it's not forgotten till date.
It must be very difficult whom to treat first, like you said, ma'am. One conception about military trained nurses you would like to correct.
Yes. Oh, thanks. First of all, big thanks for asking this question. The military trained nurses are rigid. They're not rigid, but in reality, we are disciplined and we are adaptive. Structures gives us freedom under chaos. It gives us stability under chaos. And that's what it is. We are not rigid. So military nurses are not rigid. And this is what the misconceptions I would like to clear.
Correct. So discipline or compassion, which is harder to teach?
Harder to teach.
Yeah.
Compassion. Discipline can always be imposed also, right?
Yeah.
It'll come in practice. Compassion is something which has to be ingrained into behavior, into attitude, and it's to be demonstrated through your actions.
I think that comes from inside. You cannot
trick it.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. It's difficult.
One quality every nurse leader must develop early in their career.
Judgment.
Okay.
Judgment, it's not knowledge. It's judgment on to know what to do, where and how, right? Judgment will also help you not to be judging by virtue of your experience or your knowledge or your awareness. It's knowing the right thing at the right time, knowing and doing the right thing at the right time. So it's a judgment.
One accreditation myth you wish nurses understood better.
Nurses understood better. That accreditation is not about documentation.
Like you mentioned earlier also.
Yeah, accreditation is not about documentation and checklist. It's high time nurses know, and they also need to realize more, and including organizations. Accreditation is about the risk assessment, risk management, preventing and acting proactively for the problems or the consequences to occur, right? It is one of the very sound weapons to be proactive and safe. Yes. It's like a vaccination to healthcare.
And I think that will help in every field, that proactiveness.
Yeah, I would say I will make this statement for healthcare. I master this domain. But as I said, it's like vaccination. Yes. It prevents. It prevents contact.
A habit that helped you stay grounded in high pressure roles.
Stay silent under chaos, actually, for some time. I've learned the harder way. If I react, I've regretted. And if you see few associate, I'm the zonal president for Association of Nurse Executives India. We're in the campaign also, and this is what I've been preaching for last 6 to 7 years on reacting versus responding. When my focus shifted towards mid-level nurses, and I said reactions don't help. So I remain silent under pressure for a brief period, but that helps me actually act smarter. It's rewarding.
I think it helps you better understand the situation and then work.
In such situations, you also do not know what is it like. It helps you actually gauge, strategize quickly, prepare, and because you're not disconnected. You're only aligning yourself to the situation, and it doesn't take seconds. Also, it takes nano and microseconds.
Yeah.
But do not be too eager to just to speak anything and everything. Yeah, if you are good at it, do that. Somehow it doesn't work for me. That's the reason I choose to be silent for a couple of seconds. 1 or 2 seconds is more than enough.
One change you want to see urgently in India's nurses ecosystem?
It is actually the formal recognition of advanced nursing roles with authority.
Okay.
This is something. I'm happy to share that I'm working on such projects. It's too early to talk about it with the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, with the nursing section of Director General Health Services. But this is something which is the need of the hour. Formalizing the roles of nurses with authority, not just responsibility, not just accountability, but authority.
So, last but not least, in 3 words, the future of nursing leadership in India.
Visible, influential, indispensable.
We can feel all these things. So thank you so much, ma'am. It has been a great conversation with you. I learned so much. I believe our audience would have definitely learned so many things, experienced your journey, the discipline, the insights, the wisdom, your exposure, what taught you, how you are leading the nurses ecosystem. I think that is commendable and we all appreciate. We look forward to more of your work, your contribution in our healthcare system.
Simran, I want to specially compliment you for asking brilliant questions. And I've been wondering whether you, not being a healthcare professional, but I must say that great questions. I enjoyed this conversation with you today. And thank you very much for creating this opportunity and this platform to give the nurses a visibility, a voice.
Yeah.
You've given a voice to their pulse. You have given a voice today to what they need to be cascaded to the societies, to the environment and to the ecosystem in the country. So big thanks to you and to Voice of Healthcare and of course the Polymed who had been the partners for this creation and for this conversation today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am.